After World War II, the world entered into another state of geopolitical tension, namely the Cold War, a confrontation between an Eastern bloc that includes the Soviet Union and its satellite states, and a Western bloc that includes the United States, its NATO allies, and others. At the height of the Cold War, in the late 1960s, a deterioration of a Sino-Soviet relationship complicated the situation. On the brink of nuclear attack by the Soviets to destroy China's key political and military targets, the Nixon administration decided the existence of a strong China would best serve America's national interest because it was the Soviet Union that was the country's biggest adversary. Nixon deterred the Soviet Union and accepted the olive branch from China. His visit to China in 1972 eventually led to the diplomatic relations between the two nations. During the Ford and the Nixon administration, the U.S. offered military intelligence and technologies to China. It even promised to neutralize the Soviet threat to China. According to Michael Pillsbury, a former U.S. official and author of an international bestseller, The 100-Year Marathon, President Reagan, although deeply skeptical about the Chinese Communist Party's nature and his predecessor's China policy, did the most to boost China's military. The National Security Decision Directive, NSDD, signed by President Reagan, permitted the Pentagon to sell advanced air, ground, naval, and missile technology to the Chinese to transform the People's Liberation Army into a world-class fighting force. It even inaugurated nuclear cooperation and development between the two countries. But unlike his predecessors, Reagan added a caveat to make the U.S. assistance dependent on China's alienation to the Soviet Union and liberation of its authoritarian system. However, those conditions were largely ignored. America's continuous effort to boost China militarily and technologically falls right into the Communist Party's grand strategy of modernization in 4 key areas: agriculture, industry, national defense, and technology. The strategy was first crafted by Mao Zedong, but it was Deng Xiaoping, the paramount leader after Mao, who took the strategy to a new level. Deng believed economic reform together with development in science and technology holds the key for China to change its fate. He received substantial assistance from President Jimmy Carter. The effort included accepting a great number of government-associated Chinese students to study in America, mainly in the field of science and engineering. Deng's rationale is simple. China needs science and technology, and the quickest way to get it is to take it from America. The 1989 Tiananmen massacre of the pro-democratic students and citizens by the Chinese Communist regime put a pause on the U.S.-China honeymoon. After the crackdown, the Communist Party closed a big percentage of publications, arrested tens of thousands of movement participants and sympathizers, waged an anti-Western influence campaign, and temporarily stalled the economic reform. Deng Xiaoping, who keenly spotted the danger as an imminent economic recession posed to the Communist Party's rule, insisted that China would continue its economic reform and opening up policy, a line the Americans were eager to hear. Right after the student movement, President George H.W. Bush authorized the promised delivery of military supplies to China. He said, "I am convinced that the forces of democracy are going to overcome these unfortunate events in Tiananmen Square." Bill Clinton campaigned on being tough on China. However, his tough stance did not last long after he took office. According to Michael Pillsbury, China mobilized a pro-China coalition within the administration to facilitate contact between them and Chinese allies in the business community, and to promote China's interests in Washington. Chinese officials dangled commercial deals before influential American businessmen. Major donors to the Clinton campaign lobbied the president directly, asking him not to jeopardize the prospective sales of Boeing aircraft to the Chinese or to stand in the way of launching American commercial satellites on Chinese rockets, which would save the U.S. government hundreds of millions of dollars. New support was mobilized in Congress based on constituents' economic interests. By the end of 1993, these allies persuaded the president to relax his anti-China stance. The rest of it is history. The Clinton administration helped China enter the World Trade Organization and granted the most favorable nation status to China. Following that, foreign investment poured into the country and boosted its GDP. China became the world factory and the second largest economy. Meanwhile, however, it has not become a freer society that embraces democratic values. The communist regime largely used foreign technological help to develop its Great Firewall and other apparatus to control and persecute the Chinese people.